Hi everyone, welcome to Kyle Cooks. Today we're going to be cooking a mushroom risotto with oyster mushrooms. First thing you want to do is get your shiitake mushroom stock started. So just take a handful of dried shiitakes, throw them in a pot with some water, and let them get up to a simmer and simmer for about an hour or so. After that, we're going to move over to prepping our vegetables. Traditionally in a risotto you would use white onion or a shallot or garlic, but I've got this beautiful green garlic and I've got ramps. These are both available because it's springtime in the Midwest, and why wouldn't you use them? As you can see, the green garlic's got some nasty bits on the outside and on the tips of the leaves, so we're just going to peel those off. We'll peel off the root end as well. You can save those for stock if you want to, or compost, but there's nothing wrong with just getting rid of them. We'll cut the leafy greens off and separate the stalk into two pieces. Then we'll grab our ramps. These are gorgeous wild leek/garlic member of the allium family. We're gonna toss their leaves off to the side too, and then we'll cut the bulbs, the very fatty part of the bulbs, in half. And as you can see, I'm doing this really quickly because I'm just very, very talented at cutting. This footage isn't speed up or anything at all. If you're not that good at cutting stuff, I would say just keep practicing. Don't give up on yourself, and maybe someday you'll get there. Once those are all sliced really thinly, you want to grab the extra guys that ran away. Grab a ramekin and put those into the ramekin. And ideally you want to put them into the ramekin and make a huge mess while you're doing it. It really affects the flavor in a positive way. Next we'll grab our oyster mushrooms. This is going to be the mushroom that's actually in the risotto. So we'll cut off the root end, cut those in half, and then cut off the thicker parts of the stem. The halves we're going to saute and get them very crispy, and the root end pieces we're going to just cut up very, very finely again, and those will be the base of the mushrooms in our risotto. So again, just take your time. You're not going to cut that fast like I do. I'm just really, really good at it. Set those off to the side in the ramekin. Again, make a mess, double up your work. That's always the best way to cook, I find. Oops. Anyway, we're going to take those leaves I forgot to tell you about cutting. We're going to make a gremolata out of them. So this is one Meyer lemon that I'm zesting into the ramekin. Then we're going to add all the juice as well and just top it up with a little bit of olive oil. Give all that a good stir, and that's going to develop more in flavor as we go through the cooking process. Last ingredient is truffle butter. I made this with some truffles we bought over Christmas. Obviously that's pretty extra. You could buy truffle butter if you want. You could just use regular truffle butter. I would just suggest not using truffle oil because it's pretty ucky. So we've got a pan over medium-high heat here. We're going to add some olive oil. That might look like a lot, but we're going to saute the mushrooms in here and they're going to soak up a lot of oil. Then we're going to add the ramps and green garlic, and then we're also going to toast our rice in there. So definitely use more than you think you'll need. Give that a good little stir, let them start to get crisp. This will take maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Add in your ramps and green garlic. Just saute them lightly. You're not trying to get color on them, just soften up. Again, maybe 3 or 4 minutes. You might want to drop the heat down just a little bit more. And then we're going to add in 1 cup of risotto rice. So here I'm using carnaroli. I really enjoy the texture of that. But arborio is a lot easier to find. And I've even seen recipes that use sushi before. So just use whatever short grain rice you can find. Once that's toasted for a minute or two, go ahead and add about a cup of wine to deglaze the pan and just start cooking the liquid. And stir, stir, stir. So all day long today, well, for the next half hour, we're going to be stirring more or less constantly and adding liquid in small amounts, maybe half a cup to 3/4 of a cup at a time. If you're doing it like me, you might want to mess around with your camera and forget that it wasn't turned back on, and don't film your first edition of stock. Then we're going to season it lightly. I say lightly just because we're going to add a lot of salty ingredients in the end, and we don't want it over-seasoned while it cooks. But keep stirring that, and whenever it gets down to this point where you can make a line in it, and the line doesn't immediately come back with liquid, like Moses parting the Red Sea, that's when you want to grab more stock. So grab it with your bare hands, burn. Grab it with your bare hands again, super smart. And then just grab a towel and use that. I feel like pain and anger really makes food taste better, and if you've ever spent time in professional kitchens, you would definitely recognize that. Alright, so we're going to move that pan over so we can saute our mushrooms. Keep stirring. You're going to want to stir it a lot. Maybe add a little bit more liquid here because you're going to be focusing on sauteing the mushrooms. Preheat the cast iron pan over medium-high heat, and then also have your oven started preheating to 425. We're going to add our oyster mushrooms and kind of give them a nice little press to each individual piece just so they get good contact with the pan. These oyster mushrooms are always a little awkwardly shaped, so just make sure you get as much contact with the pan as you can at first. We're going to let those go for a few minutes and not even worry about color or anything. Just let them saute. Don't worry about how hot the pan is. Just let them sizzle, sizzle, sizzle for 3 or 4 minutes. Once they look much smaller, you can turn them over, and if you get this brown color, that means you're in a really good spot. So go ahead and flip all of them, and then we'll throw them in the oven. And this risotto needs about 10 or 15 more minutes before it's done. So at this point, you can kind of forget about them in the oven. We want them to be super crispy, almost like mushroom chips at the end. Alright, bring that pan back over and stir, stir, stir. Then we'll do a jump cut to about 10 minutes later because you don't need to watch me stir for half an hour. So we've added several more additions of stock, and now the risotto is pretty much done. So we're going to go in with our truffle butter, and we're going to go in with this fake Parmesan that takes inspiration from Italy, because somehow I had black truffle butter in my refrigerator, but not real Parmesan. If you see how much liquid is in the pan, that's about how much you want, because you want this to flow on the plate even when it's done, and this cheese and butter is going to help thicken it up quite a bit. I'm not going too heavy with the Parmesan here. This is maybe a quarter cup for 2 to 3 portions. You just want to make sure it tastes nice and rich. Don't overpower the flavor of the mushrooms, just enhance them with some of the umami flavors in the cheese. And now it's time to plate, so we'll grab a couple spoonfuls, and you can see how it just kind of runs across the plate. It doesn't mound up straight, but it doesn't necessarily run super thin. It just kind of oozes across the plate. Put a couple spoonfuls down, and then we'll add our mushroom chips to the top. You can see how crispy and rigid those are. That's going to make great texture against the soft risotto. And then once we get that finished, we will add our ramp and green garlic Meyer lemon gremolata, and just let the olive oil and the Meyer lemon juice just kind of drip and ooze all over the place. This is going to be delicious. And if you enjoyed this video, please give me a like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.